One. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on 9 News Watch. I'm Chris Bianchi, joined by 9 News Broncos insider and mastermind of all things Broncos, Mike Klis. Our very own Mike Klis joins us now. And Mike, I want to start things off with the big news of yesterday and the ownership saga for the Broncos getting perhaps one step closer to being resolved. The right of first refusal component of everything. But Mike, could you just give us an overview about where we stand with the potential transfer of Broncos ownership?
Right. Judge Gilman in Denver District Court, they had the trial back in September. I attended that, and both the KUSA estate and the Dan Riley, the lawyer, and his team, the lawyers for the trustees and the Pat Bolin Trust and all the entities that own the Broncos, filed a claim against KUSA saying that they no longer had a first refusal. The judge issued an order yesterday that was resounding in agreeing with the trustees. There's no longer a right of first refusal. Basically terminated the right of first refusal with Edgar Kaiser's death in 2012. And don't know if there's going to be a appeal. It could be an appeal by the Kaiser estate and the our holdings where the right of first refusal is held. But it was such a resounding deal by the judge that it's hard to believe they'd win an appeal. So Joe Ellis is prepared to announce how he's going to proceed with the transfer of ownership. But because there's a head coaching search, he doesn't want to put that ahead of the head coaching search. He wants the new head coach to get its due. This is a football team before it's a business, in a matter of speaking. Almost all businesses in the world are about making money. In sports, the business is about winning and losing. It doesn't matter how much money you make. And so the head coach is more important than ownership, is the way Joe Ellis is going about it. And the head coach will probably be named, I anticipate, Chris, Monday, January 24th, Tuesday, the 25th, Wednesday, the 26th, somewhere in that 3-day window, no later than 2 weeks from today. And then a day or two after that, I do anticipate Joe Ellis making his announcement on controlling ownership. And almost all signs, and in fact, all signs point to a sale and not getting transferred to Brittany Bolin, as had been the plan for a couple of years. But as things kind of progressed or regressed with family drama, I think the NFL and Joe Ellis would rather move on and sell it to an outside investor who can afford $4 billion, or at least has the bank loans lined up and the cash to do $4 billion.
Well, that's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks in Broncos land. So I guess since it's going to be coaching, then ownership, Mike, could you give us an idea? I know there's, as you've reported on 9news.com, 10 different coaching candidates right now. And that schedule seems to be getting pretty lengthy for Joe Ellis and the rest of the and George Paton and the rest of the committee that'll be deciding on the head coach. How will it play out as we head through the next few days? I know the Broncos already have some interviews lined up.
Yeah, they have. George Paton has his search committee, and Joe Ellis isn't really on that search committee. He's not going to be interviewing these people in person. Neither is John Elway. Neither is Brittany Bolin, which is sign number one that she won't be the next owner. The search committee consists of George Paton, his top personnel assistant, Darren Muji, Kelly Klein, who's a football operations executive director, Ray Jackson, who's the vice president of player development, and Patrick Smythe, who's the PR maven there, chief communications officer is what he's called now. So that's the committee right there. That is a five-person committee. They're going to fly to Detroit on Thursday and interview Aaron Glenn, the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator. His resume doesn't look that hot numbers wise. They were 31st in scoring defense this year, 29th in yards allowed, and the Broncos scored 38 against them. And when the Broncos offense can score 38 against you, you better have some explaining to do in that interview. But Aaron Glenn has a solid reputation around the league. Sean Payton, Bill Parcells, these are guys. He played for Bill Parcells. These are guys, two of many guys who have said this guy is head coach material. He has it. So he's their first interview on Thursday. Thursday night, they fly to Green Bay. And on Friday, they'll interview Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for the Packers. He's been a play caller before. When he was in Jacksonville, he led Blake Bortles to a top 10 offense and the AFC Championship game in 2017, which is quite an accomplishment. Blake Bortles passing challenged, if you will. And then he's been with the Packers. He's kind of second in command there. Matt LaFleur, the head coach, calls the plays. But Nathaniel Hackett is big on putting the game plan together. He works with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers swears by him. And so he'll go on Friday. He's the son of Paul Hackett, a longtime offensive coordinator. And then on Saturday, they'll interview Packers quarterback coach Luke Getsy, whose resume is thin, but he's with the Packers. And, everybody thinks that deal right there, Chris, is all about a package deal. You hire Nathaniel Hackett as your head coach. Luke Getsy becomes your offensive coordinator. And then they recruit Aaron Rodgers to Denver. That's maybe a pie in the sky, but that's kind of the thinking there with interviewing those two coaches from Green Bay. And then they'll fly home Saturday night. And then next week, starting Tuesday, they have 7 other coaches on their list. All 7 of them are in the playoffs and playing in the first round, the wild card round, this weekend. And see if I can think of the 7 off the top of my head. The Cowboys have 2, both coordinators. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, who appears to be the leader in the clubhouse to get the job for the Broncos. Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator. You got Eric Bieniemy, that everyone knows around here, who everybody knows around here, the former Colorado Buff star and offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. Jonathan Gannon, a first-year defensive coordinator for the Eagles. Jared Mayo, a linebackers coach for the New England Patriots. Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, works directly with Sean McVay. And Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator for that explosive Bengals offense with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. Broncos want to talk to him. Brian Callahan cut his teeth in the coaching industry with the Broncos. He started in 2010 with Josh McDaniels, then was with Tebow in 11, and all through the Peyton Manning years before he moved on from there. So a nice list, some with thin resumes but are strong leaders, some with impressive resumes. Dan Quinn is the only candidate who's been a head coach before. He's with the Atlanta Falcons and led him to the Super Bowl and had that famous 28-3 collapse against the Patriots following the 2016 season. So there's your 10 candidates.
Well, who could forget 28-3? Mike, I thought it was interesting you said that Dan Quinn could be, and I know this is very early in the search process, but you said that he could be the favorite amongst those 10. What about him do you think potentially appeals to that Broncos search committee?
Well, number one, he was with George Payton, and George has over the years been about in this last year he brought in some Minnesota Viking connections here. He feels comfortable with a lot of the people he knows, and he knows Dan Quinn going back to 2005 and 2006 with the Miami Dolphins. I think Quinn was a linebackers coach at the time, a position coach. And George was more of a lower level front office personnel guy. So they were both on lower rungs with the Dolphins, but that relationship they had, goes back 15, 16 years. That plus the fact he's the only guy who's had head coaching experience. Third factor, he's got a lot of dynamo personality to him. He's got energy. um, he's a gregarious personality type guy. The Broncos, I think, after 3 years with Vic Fangio, and this is nothing against Vic Fangio, Bill Belichick's kind of the same way, a very low key. He doesn't play music in practice. There's just not a whole lot of energy. There's a lot of smarts and intelligence and know-how, but there wasn't a lot of energy. And I think Broncos want energy with their next head coach. And all those factors right there make Dan Quinn the top candidate.
All right, so there it is with the coaching search. I guess when it comes to the next big question, I think that's on Broncos country's mind would be the quarterback position. And the Broncos have the number 9 pick. They have, $50 million in cap room. They have, you would think, both in terms of free agency as well as in the draft with those 11 picks as well. The tools they need to get that quarterback. What do you think the Broncos could do this offseason at that position?
Well, I think plan A is to go after Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers, I know it's hard to believe because it looks like he's going to be MVP for a second consecutive year with the Packers. They're the number 1 seed for a second consecutive year. It does look like they're going to at least get to the NFC Championship game once again. They've been in the Final Four, it seems like, every other year in the NFC for the last 10 years. They just haven't been able to get over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
But Rodgers' contract, the way they restructured it after he was very disgruntled last offseason, and the Broncos for a while thought they were going to get him last offseason. He returned to Green Bay. Green Bay wouldn't let him up. The contract is set up, so it's going to be very, very difficult for him to go back to Green Bay this year for cap reasons. They don't have enough cap room, and by keeping him, his cap is enormous. I think his cap is higher than the cap room they have. So there's a chance that Rodgers, you can always manipulate the cap, and Green Bay can do that if he wants to stay. But if not, and he still holds grudges with some of the front office executives there in Green Bay, and he wants out, the Broncos will be the first in line to try to get him. If they can't get him, then I think Russell Wilson. If they can't get him, then I think Jimmy Garoppolo or Kirk Cousins, someone with some stripes, a veteran presence that's they would feel is an upgrade on Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Now, Teddy's a free agent, and so you probably don't bring him back in this scenario. You probably have the trade lined up before free agency begins. And then Drew Lock might be part of the trade. If you go get, let's say you wind up with Kirk Cousins, Drew Lock is probably part of the package that goes back to the Minnesota Vikings. So that's step one. I think they'll go hard after that avenue for quarterback. And then if they strike out on all those, and I don't think they will, I think they'll wind up with one of the top 4 or 5 veterans that are available. Then in the draft, I don't think anyone in the draft in the first round is ready to start day one, the way Mac Jones was with the Patriots. The way Zach Wilson, he struggled starting day one. The way Trevor Lawrence was with Jacksonville. All those quarterbacks, Lawrence and Wilson came on late in the season. Mac Jones is kind of fading a little. But no one in this draft, according to the draftniks, the mocksters, believe that there's a quarterback that can start day one. Matt Corral, Pittsburgh's got a guy. I'm drawing a blank on him. Kyle, I'm drawing a blank on the guy right now. Let me see if while I got you on the phone, I can figure out
Kyle Trask,
here.
right?
Yeah,
Kyle Trask.
In the draft we're talking about here, and it seems like it was a guy named Pitts, but Uh, that doesn't seem. That doesn't seem. Kenny Pickett. That's it. Geez, Kenny Pickett. So they, that you've got like 3 or 4 first rounders, but they're all uh, projects. So I don't think the answer is there. I really think now they're going. I think they're going to draft a quarterback and develop them, but I think they want a veteran quarterback ahead of them. So your starter next year for the Broncos at quarterback, in my opinion, is not on the roster right now. He's on someone else's roster.
I guess the final thing I think of here, Mike, is I keep thinking back to that Von Miller trade and frankly how well the Broncos did there. Getting that second, getting that third round pick gives the Broncos that potential ammunition to either make a trade for a quarterback or to perhaps move up in that draft, right? I mean, couldn't that extra third be useful this offseason?
Yeah, the extra they picked up a second and a third round draft pick for Von Miller. Now, remember, Vaughn by himself probably got a second or a third round draft pick, and then the Broncos kicked in $9 million of his $10.5 million salary. So that $9 million bought the other draft pick. So they bought one, and they traded for another. And yes, they now have the number 9 overall pick in the first round, and then 2 picks in the second and 2 picks in the third. And when you're getting Aaron Rodgers, you're probably trading that first round pick, probably your first round pick in 2023, and the second and third, and one of those second round picks, and maybe a player like Jerry Jeudy, a young player. I tell you, the guys that are going to be that the Packers are going to want are they're going to want either Javonte Williams or Pat Surtain. That's a little expensive for most Bronco countries' taste. But if there's a player involved, that's who the Packers are going to want. You want Aaron Rodgers or don't you? Give us Pat Surtain or give us Javonte Williams. I can see the Packers doing that. And the reason why those 2 guys would be wanted is they're the best of the cheap players. They both got their signing bonuses, and they both got very good signing bonuses. Surtain got 12.7 this year. Javonte Williams got like 3.5 in a signing bonus, but that's now off the books. And so all those guys will make in cash in 2022 is the minimum salary of $750,000. So those 2 guys are the most valuable commodities. And if you're giving up players, you're probably not giving up, that extra third round draft pick. You're not giving up that extra second round draft pick. You probably are giving up that 2 first rounders to get Aaron Rodgers, but that's kind of the going rate if you want Aaron Rodgers. So it'll be interesting to see what George Paton wants to do there. And keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers turns 39 in December. And it does look like he has 2 or 3 very good years in him. And Tom Brady has changed the bar a little bit for age in quarterbacks. I mean, here he is going strong at 44. Do you think Aaron Rodgers can play for 5 more years? Just because Tom Brady did it doesn't mean Aaron Rodgers can. So, if you want Aaron Rodgers for 3 years or rent a quarterback, you got to give up the future. It'll be interesting to see what George Paton does there.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, you deserve a big signing bonus as well. We appreciate having you on here for a few minutes, and it's been a pleasure. And boy, interesting times here in Broncos country. I mean, there is a lot going on other than ownership, coaching, quarterback, 11 draft picks, and $50 million in cap room. There's nothing going on with the Broncos, right?
Yeah. Everybody says, "What do you do in the off season?" And I want to say, looking forward to the season so I can ease up on my workload. So that's the way it is in the NFL, man. You get 3 weeks. You get 3 weeks of downtime, and that's like the last 2 weeks of June, and I guess the first 2 weeks of July. So there's a 4-week window, and in there, you hope something like a player doesn't get arrested for something. There's always something to follow. That it's a 24/7, 365 news cycle in the NFL.
Well, you're on top of it. Mike Klis, our 90s Broncos insider, who's always on top of everything. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Klis. Thanks so much for your time here and going into detail about what's going to be a fascinating few months ahead for you and for the Broncos. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chris.